Hello, it's nice seeing you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have a number of announcements. One is that if you do not have Right Now Media, it's an app that's full of wonderful Christian resources. And this week, we wanted to showcase Ravi Zacharias. Ravi, it's wonderful Christians. Did a wonderful work for the Lord. His specialty is on apologetics. Basically, it's defending the faith. So there's a lot of good teachings on Right Now Media. If you have not signed up for that, you can go on to our website, www.bemc.ca, and the details are there for sign up. I also wanted to encourage you, if you have any prayer requests, do send it my way. My email is pastorsam at bemc.ca. Pastorsam at bemc.ca. So thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for giving to the Lord, for your generosity. We do have e-transfer, and you can connect with that through our website. Without further ado, I wanted to start our message today. It's a very exciting message. All messages are exciting. Today we continue our sermon series called Who is My King? And of course, Jesus is my King, and how do we serve him? Today we continue our book study on Book of Judges. We're going to look at chapter 6, Book of Judges, chapter 6. I titled this message, The Lord is with us. The Lord is with us. And that's our focus, and that's really the key. As we walk with God, as we walk with Jesus, the Lord is with us. What does that mean? Today, the judges, one of the judges that we're going to showcase is Gideon. And a lot of us are familiar with Gideon, a lot of great work that he have done. But today, we're going to look at his calling. One side of it, I'm going to showcase God's grace, parallel to how Gideon's faith, faith built upon faith. And so hopefully there is something in there that would encourage us, and as well that maybe certain things that Gideon did that we learned from, maybe certain things that Gideon did that we wanted to stay away from. And so for the next 2 weeks, we'll also be focusing on Gideon's, and we're going to see his rise, and then we're going to see his fall as well. What makes him fall is because he based on his own strength. And so we're looking at his calling, and then next week we're going to look at his rise, and then later on what makes him fall. And so we could see that how we cannot learn from that. And so let's look at that. I'm gonna today Judges 6. I wanted to give a little bit background on Judges 6, verse 1 to 6. It says that the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of the Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain cliffs, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern people invaded the country. They camped on the land and ruined the crops all the way to Gaza, and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep, nor cattle, nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock and their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them or their camels. They invade the land to ravage it. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. So want to highlight a few things about the background. First of all, here they did evils in the eyes of the Lord. Here's another cycle again. It's not based on anybody's standard. It's based on the Lord's standard. Anything evils in the eyes of the Lord. I wanted to remind us that when we follow Christ, it's like we want to follow Christ with our faith. Not we want to follow him with our faith, not by sight. Walk with faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Walk by faith, not by sight. And so here we're seeing that once again they're failing, did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years the Lord disciplined them, handing them to the Midianites. Midianites is also a distant family. Midian, the ancestor, the Midianites, it's come from the guy named Midian, and he was one of Abraham's son. Abraham married another wife, um, and they have one of their son is called Median, and so that's a distant family. And what is interesting about this, it's that they came and they impoverished the Israelites. They took over all their livestock, everything. I wonder, like, if you can picture, let's say these days you're farming, you're having a garden in your backyard, whatnot. You spend loads and loads of time and resources in there, and just rabbits or something came and took all your hard work, all of it gone. And when we look at locusts, when they came it's like in a swarm. They're comparing that the Midianites are like the locusts that they came and it's like one after another. It's just covering stuff. My question to us is sometimes do we experience problems like this? It's like one after another that it was just overwhelming. And for the Israelites were like that. When the Midianites came, they were like locusts. They came and they just took everything. This week we remember Ravi Zacharias' death and his life. And I saw one of his testimonies. And to me, it really reminds that in his life, sometimes there's problems that just came and so overwhelming that is one after another. It says here, Ravi Zacharias was 17 years old, lying in hospital bed in India in critical condition after attempting to die by suicide. And why he did that, here's what he said. Um, he was so he was so broken. It says that as a young boy, he dreamed of playing cricket or tennis, but was not talented enough to rise to the elite levels, and he was not a good student. And as a result of his poor performance in school, his father would often beat him. Depressed and with what he viewed as no options in life, Ravi Zacharias attempt to end his life. There are times that in our lives are like that, like the Israelites being attacked by the Midianites, and they have to hide in caves. So when they come, they know that when they come, they all go left their belongings, hide in caves, hide in mountains, and then they came like locusts, and then they just took everything, and then they left. It's like Ravi in his life at that point when he was 17. He couldn't mount up to any elite sports, and then later on, his performance at school not doing well, beaten by his father. He said there's no meaning in life. He was overwhelmed. He was like, this is it. So he was hiding under his pain to the point that he wanted to take his life. But thank God for his grace. So here it is. We'll look at verse 7. And when the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of the Midian, he sent them a prophet. The Lord sent him a prophet who said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, say, I brought you out of Egypt, out of land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hands of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you the land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites, and in whose lands you live, but you have not listened to me. Here's God's grace. I always wanted to remind us and wanted to park in there because it's so amazing. A God that who couldn't help himself, that the Israelites continue to disobey him, continue to sin against him, continue to do evils in the Lord's eye. But when they cried out to him, he just showed up. He couldn't help himself. But when he showed up, when he sent his prophet, he showed up, he started to counting. You know what? The reason why I discipline you, it's because I loved you. Look at all the things that I did for you. Look at, I rescued you out of Egypt. I bring you into Canaan, into the promised land, and your spiritual continue to plunge. But doesn't matter. I continue to show my love towards you. That is an amazing, amazing God. I wanted us to pause for a moment in there and just really, really imagine if somebody had promised us to keep doing a certain thing, but they keep hurting us by failing to keep their promises. Once, twice, we may say, that's it. We no longer wanted to associate with you. we're really hurt and deeply hurt by you. But God, man, God said, the reason I discipline you, it's because I wanted to build you up. The reason I discipline you is because I love you. Look at all the things that I have loved, show you. And it really reminds me of Ravi's life. And here, Ravi already accepted Lord once. But now he's at the hospital bed. And I think the hospital bed was the grace. What's the grace part? That he didn't die. That was God's grace. And God heard their cry. He says, God knows. And then here, when we move forward, verse 11, it says that the angel of the Lord came and sat down under an oak in Ophrah that belongs to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. I wanted to stop here. First of all, where do you, like in those times, there's no machines to look after their wheats. And so what happened is that they have to thresh. They went to their threshing floor. And that is usually out in the open when they harvest and then when they thresh their wheat. But here it reminds us, why was Gideon hiding in a wine press? It's because the Midianites were impoverished them so much that they were so afraid that they'll come and slaughter, they'll come and took all their stuff. So Gideon would hide in a wine press where at least there's 4 walls, and he is like threshing the wheat. And usually when they do that outside, the husk, it's the lighter, and then it would just blow by the wind, and what is heavier, it would fall down, and then they would use it for food. But here, Gideon hiding in a wine press because he was afraid the Midianites is going to come, it's going to slaughter, it's going to take, they may see him from afar, he's doing his work, and then when he's done, they came over and took his stuff. He's so afraid that he's hiding. And look what is amazing here. That says, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. What an ironic phrase, right? Gideon, who's hiding in the wine press, mighty warrior. But it's interesting, in the scripture, in the Old Testament, New Testament, a lot of times that it's how God sees somebody. It's not how we see ourselves. It's not how people see us. We walk by faith, not by sight. It's how God sees Gideon. And that's also later on Gideon's fall. It's that Gideon is so puffed up. But here at this point is how God sees Gideon. It's important how God sees. In the Bible, in Old Testament, before Abraham had any descendants, the Lord said, you're the father of all nations. Right? In the New Testament with Peter, before the church was built on Peter, before anything happened, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. That Peter, the church is going to build on him. Here, Gideon, the Lord said, mighty warrior. How ironic. I want to remind us that it's so important of how God sees. It's not so much about how we see ourselves or how other people see us. It's how God sees us. Mighty warrior. And then Gideon's like, pardon me? Verse 13, pardon me, my Lord? Gideon replied, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all these wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. The Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength you have and save Israel out of the Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Verse 15, pardon me, my Lord. Gideon replied, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. And the Lord answered, I will be with you. Second time, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me, but please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you return." And verse 19, Gideon went inside, prepared a young goat, and from an ephod of flour, about lots and lots of flour. He made bread without yeast, putting the meat in a basket and its broth in a pot, and he brought them out and offered them to him under the oak. And verse 20, the angel of the Lord said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth." And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die." And so Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it "The Lord is Peace." To this day it stands in Ophir of the Abirites. There's a number of things that I wanted to highlight. First of all, Gideon said, "Pardon me, my Lord." He said it 2 times. It's like today we're saying, "You kidding me? You kidding me? You kidding me?" And then he started giving excuse. Even though the Lord said, "I'm with you," he said, "I'm the weakest in Manasseh, and I'm the least in my family." He start hiding. He started stepping back, and then he said, "If I found favor in your eye, let me prepare you." Like, can you imagine, like a young goat, cutting a young goat, like, and cooking it, and then also have like loads and loads of flour making bread. This is going to take some time. I wonder if Gideon's is saying, "You know what, if I really know that who's you, maybe you're not going to be there after I cook all this meal. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to take a long time to cook this." It's going to take a long time. And then he came back, "Oh my goodness, you know, he's still there." And this is the first time that he experienced anything supernaturally. First time, because here it says that, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on a rock, and pour the broth out." And then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in it. Fire flared up from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread. See, Moses, the burning bush, or Moses, "Show me that you're a Lord." And then he put his hand in his pocket, and then came out with leprosy. And then he put it back in. He dropped the staff, and then snake, and then hold the tail of the snake, and then become a staff. Here he's testing the Lord. But here is also the first time Gideon experienced anything supernatural. I wanted to remind us that these are God's people. Gideon is God's people. But at the same time, he does not really know God. Look at those questions he asked in the beginning. He said that, if you are really the Lord, verse 13, "Why has all this happened to us? I have heard of your good thing, but I have never experienced you. Did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt? I have heard all of these things, but now the Lord is abandoning us and giving us to the hands of the Midian." Today, there's a lot of people that they said that we follow God, but they have no real experience with God. They have no deep encounter with God. They call Lord, but they don't have that experience. And here's Gideon's the first time. When that fire, it's almost like Elijah. The fire licked up the water. Here's the fire burn up the offering, the sacrifice. And Gideon has that first encounter of supernatural. You see, in our lives, it's important to remember those times. Here, faith built upon faith. Faith built upon faith. We are seeing that Gideon's faith is continue to grow. But we're also seeing God's grace. It's amazing. Let me remind us that, first off, the Israelites sinned. God still have grace, disciplining because he loved. He couldn't help. Then when the Israelites cried out, and God's grace came, hurt God very bad, and God's grace came. I heard their cry. God didn't do anything immediately. God took the step, send an angel, and then God came to Gideon. And God being very, very patient with Gideon. Gideon tests the Lord. If you are really the Lord say, you're a mighty warrior. I see you as a mighty warrior, and I'm with you. What kind of God would do that? So patient, so gracious, full of grace and love, and saying to Gideon, go and do this. And Gideon said, whoa, wait, you kidding me? But if you're really the Lord, let me go and bring some offering to you. I will see if you're going to wait there. Lo and behold, and came. Whoa, you licked up, you sent fire. Now I really see God. First, look at God's grace. Man, God will let somebody to say, hey, do this and do this. Well, the reason I think is because if we look later in 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1, it talk about that in those times, the people don't really know God. And as well, God doesn't talk much with his people. And as well, there's not that many vision. And so that's why God has to build up Gideon's faith. But today, we have the Bible. We have the Bible. We have Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ shows so much grace. He is grace himself. But let's continue and seeing that. One example that I find from Ravi Zacharias is that he experienced, God showed up in a sense, and he experienced something. I don't think he would think that. So this is what happened to him. In Youth for Christ International, at that point, was hosting a preaching competition in India with thousands of young people from all over Asia attending. And when the speaker representing Delhi, where Ravi came from, backed out at the last minute due to university commitments, the guy who became, so to speak, Ravi's mentor, Ravi's good friend, came to Ravi Zacharias. He said, Ravi, you're going to speak this afternoon. And Ravi said, why are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me? Are you kidding? Why are you talking to me? And Ravi said to his good friend, Fred, I've never spoken in my life. And his friend said, look, all I've done for you, you owe me this one. Speak this afternoon. Isn't it there's kind of a little parallel? I see it in Gideon's life. God said to Gideon, you go, mighty warrior, and fight. And his friends say to Ravi, go and preach. And Ravi said, no, I've never preached before. And here, Gideon said, I'm from the smallest clan and the youngest of my family. You kidding me? Don't do that. But guess what happened? Ravi preached a short 10-minute sermon. To his surprise, he was announced a co-winner with a tie for the first place. First place. And here, Gideon experienced God too. Supernaturally. I bet Ravi at that point, it's like, really? Never preached before. First place. Co-winner. God is so patient with us sometimes that He's His grace. He helps us to build faith upon faith to the place that He can use us to glorify Him. But it's all because of God, not us. Walk by faith, not by sight. How God sees us. The Lord is with you. It's so important. That's really the key. Let's continue. Verse 25, that same night. See, the Lord is right off the bat. that same night, the Lord is going to build his faith again. He said to Gideon, take the second bull from your father's herd, the 7 year-olds, which is, this is the second one. Tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of this height, using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down. Offer the second bull as a burnt offering. Verse 27. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him, because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. In the morning, when the people of the town got up, there was Baal's altar demolished with the Asherah pole beside it cut down, and a second bull sacrificed on a newly built altar. They asked each other, who do this? When they carefully investigate, they were told Gideon, son of Joash, did that. The people of the town demand of Joash, bring out your son, he must die, because he has broken down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. But Joash replied to the hostile crowd around him, are you going to plead Baal's cause? Are you trying to save him? Whoever fights for him shall be put to death by morning. If Baal really is God, he can defend himself when someone breaks down his altar. So, because Gideon broke down Baal's altar, they gave him the name Jerubbaal that day, saying, let Baal contend with him. Right after that night, that evening, God gave him a test to build his faith. It's basically saying, now you know I'm God. I ask you to do something. Go and take down Baal worshiping, and also using the wife of Baal, Asherah, the pole, to use it as fuel to offer the sacrifice to the Lord. Offer the sacrifice to the Lord. What I find is quite interesting is that Gideon's still building up his faith. He's so afraid to see it in public, so he did it at night. And he's the smallest in his clan, in his family, youngest in his family. He couldn't do any. He's 10 servants. Bring 10 people. Is that go and and demolish this Baal statue. But at the same time, which statue should we take down? Well, let's take down my father's one. So in case my father has any issue, at least it's from my father. He's still afraid. He's still afraid, even though God showed up. He still go and do that. Still afraid. God was so patient, eh? God was so patient. God gave him another test to build him up. And that's what he did at night. But next day, the townspeople find that out. It's not like Gideon said, hey, here I am. I did that. No, he's still afraid. Until they investigate and find out it's Joash's son. Here's the interesting part that he experienced God's work. Even though in that time they know that like Baal worship is no, and they can see that his family, particularly his father, they are not God worshiper. They worship idol. They worship Baal. See, as a leader, we have influence. As somebody who follow God, we have influence. See how he influenced his family. I bet his father, when his father see that, oh, my son, he's so wonderful. He stood up for what is right. God has used that. And it's quite interesting. That really reminds me of Elijah. Elijah said, well, if your Baal is really God, Baal can do that. Maybe you guys should dance louder, dance more, sing louder, slash yourself more. And maybe Baal is sleeping. Here, his father has a change of heart. God changed his father's heart. Gideon stepped up, and change hath influence over his family. This is the second one that he experienced God. Faith upon faith. And Gideon's father, Joash, said, you know what? He changed. He defended his son. He said that, well, let Baal defend himself. Don't even touch my son. Let Baal defend himself. See, that's the second time. When I look at Ravi's life, after Ravi had experience at preaching, being the co-winner, later on, in the second sermon to break the tie, Ravi Zacharias preached on the cross of Christ. It was the beginning of Ravi Zacharias' preaching career. That broke the tie. God built that guy's faith. Ravi. Never preached before. First preaching. Co-winner with, tie with the winner. Then the second preaching. Break that tie. Faith upon faith. That's actually in Romans chapter 1, verse 17. Faith upon faith. Can we think of some examples in our lives that how patient God is with us, that even allow us to take our time, and not only that see our faith grow, and how that influence our family? I remember when my cousin came to Canada, she didn't even recognize me. This is my cousin, Sam. My cousin Sam was a pain in Hong Kong. I didn't even recognize him. And one evening, she sat down in front of me and she said, you know what? You are not the Sam that I know. Have we known people who accepted Christ? That their behavior has changed. They've become more mild and more gentle and more meek. They are more self-sacrificial. They're more loving. They're more concerned about others than themselves. The Lord has used her to change family. And people said, whoa, look at that. That person is believing in God. You see how people know us, that we're followers of Christ? It's because people can tell us that we're different than non-Christian. They can tell because of our love. They can tell that we are, oh, you're not like the non-Christians. Walk by faith, not by sight. The Lord is with us. The Lord's grace. Let's keep moving on to our second last part, verse 33. Here's finally Gideon. Now all the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern people joined forces and crossed the Jordan and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, summoning the Abirites to follow him. He sent messengers throughout Manasseh, calling them to arm, and also into Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. So they too went up to meet with him here. Gideon, it's now rise above. He's on the top now, and he's called up these people. Look at him, the Spirit of the Lord upon him. He called out, he blew the trumpet and gathered all these tribes together. Mighty warrior. The birth of a mighty warrior. He's able to gather the people and do amazing work. But wait, here's another test. Gideon, even though he was up there, he was afraid. Verse 39, it said, so then Gideon said to God, here's again, do not be angry with me. Let me make just one more request. Verse 36, Gideon said to God, if you save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there's dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand as you said. And that is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day. He squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. Basically, the dew, the fleece, the wool, all around is dry ground. Fleece wet. And then the next one, Gideon said to God, do not be angry with me. Let me make just one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece. He upside down it. But this time make the fleece dry and let the ground cover with dew. That night God did so. Only the fleece was dry and all the grounds covered with dew. Wow. Can you believe that? Gideon was just faith upon faith, and then he still tests God. Like, this is something that do not learn. A lot of people at that point, when they read this story, they decided that we're going to try it. I tried myself. I read the story. I tried myself when I was young. I took the bus to school and took the bus back home. And I said to God, I have this girl that I really like. I wanted to ask her out. If this girl showed up on the bus today when I get on the bus, then let me date this girl. And guess what? The whole bus was empty, except the bus driver. Of course, I'm not dating the bus driver. And the bus empty. Does the Lord telling me that I should never date anybody? No. See, that's a part that we better not learn from this. But once again, it shows God's grace. So amazing. Even though the miracle is so hard, maybe the first one is easier. The wool, the fleas will get wet. The ground is dry. We understand it. But the second one, he really know that it's God, because the fleas was dry. The fleas was dry this time, but everything around it is wet. He tested God again, and it really showed me that God is very gracious and patient. Today I wanted to just do a quick summary of that. First of all, it's God's grace. We really need to hold on to God's grace. Jesus Christ, has the food of God's grace came to us. We sin and we sin and we sin. We disobey him. We do evils in the eyes of God. But he's still gracious. Second, faith upon faith. Faith upon faith. He had used different things to build us our faith. We need to hold on to that. And third thing is that, do you remember from that point on, people call Gideon, what's his name? What's his nickname? Jerubbaal. Baal is content with him. So Baal is against him. Baal challenged him. Baal struggle. It's like Jacob struggle. He struggled with Baal. Gideon. I wanted to stop for a moment and think about, who do we worship? Do we have any idols in our life? What are our Baals, so to speak? Do people call us, our Baal may be money. Our Baal may be our career. Our Baal may be our health. Our Baal may be, you name it, relationship. But do people call us our nickname Jaramani? We challenge, we fight against, we struggle. Do we call us Jara career? Jara relationship? Jara health? What is it? God, people call us our nickname. That we challenge that we fight against that. Just like Gideon had took down Baal, God called him to. And people gave him a nickname, Jerubbaal. He fight against Baal. Today, if there's Baal in our lives, we need to say, Lord, help us to get rid of that. The Lord is with us. Get rid of that. And then maybe people will give us that nickname, Jara, whatever. And finally, one thing that we do not want to learn from, it's we do not want to test God, because what he was doing is that he was the one who's designing the tests. Do not do that. I've gave my own example. Maybe I'm sure we have examples too, but do not learn from that. Learn from that God is grace. Learn from that he built us faith upon faith. And take down our Baals. And that what is our nickname. Thank you so much for joining. Let us pray. Oh God, we thank you for your wonderful story. We give thanks for your patience. We give thanks for Jesus Christ. There is no way that we could describe how grateful we are. Sometimes we just continue to disobey you, continue to have our own Baal, even though you said that you are with us, mighty warrior. Even though you have demonstrated over and over again of faith, and we continue to not listen to you, not hear your voice. Forgive us, Lord, today. Remind us about your grace. Remind us about Jesus Christ, what he had done for us on the cross. Remind us of that you discipline us because you want to build us up. And so today, Lord, we give our lives to you. Forgive our sins. Help us to take down our Baal, that we will have the nickname. In Jesus' name, amen. I wanted to encourage you that when you look at my devotion, Tuesday and Thursday, or even a sermon on Sunday, if there's anything that God spoke to you, God encouraged you, I want you to use it and share it with other people, encourage one another. Put it on Facebook, put it on somewhere to encourage, whether it's from the sermon or not, whether it's from the devotion or not. If there's anything, put it down and say, Lord, like encourage one another. Help us to build faith upon faith. The Lord is with us. And God see that different. God see our heart. Walk by faith, not by sight. I wanted to bless you with this message. May you be blessed and encouraged. Let's receive the Lord's blessings. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord turn his face upon you. And the Lord give you peace. Amen. Have a wonderful week.